Okay, we are live. It says a few seconds. Okay, perfect. There we go. Where'd my Zoom go?
Gosh, you are the professional at this live.
I love this.
Right here. You're so good at this.
This is my world, darling. I have so much fun with this. Okay, I think we're live. I'm just double checking in all my spots. We just let another. Okay, we're good. We are live. Okay, now let me just record. Okay, we had one more guest come in. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Okay, I'm going to record. Record. And we're going to go to speaker view. Awesome. Okay, well, good morning and welcome. I'm so excited to have a good friend of mine and an amazing, in my opinion, Brian Gubernick. You are an impact in our entire industry. So just welcome to the show, Brian Gubernick. I'm honored to have you here today.
You are too kind, Melanie, but I so appreciate it. I love that you do this stuff, and I love how you play the game. So it really is an honor. So thank you for having me.
Well, and I really appreciate it because I know you've been on the road the last couple of weeks, traveling around between Inman and other initiatives. So I just appreciate you moving your schedule to make that happen. So.
No, it's all good. The only thing, if you could help me with this time zone change coming from, I'm in Phoenix, going to New York or going to Florida with that 3 hours, and I'm all messed up. But
I know, right? I know we've got Cody Gibson's teaching our bold right now, right? And so this week I went to it and I said, wow, it's like 6 a.m. your time. Like, that's early, isn't it? And he's like, it's okay. It's okay. And I said, here's your coffee. So thank you for being on the call and on this with us so early today.
Well, no worries. My buddy Cody, though, early, it's challenging for him because he's got to do his hair and his makeup and get himself like that guy's always looking like he's ready to take the runway.
I know he's
modeling runway.
Yes, exactly. He's like hair and makeup at 5 a.m. You know, Cody, that's the way he rolls.
Oh yeah. I mean, at 6 a.m. appointment, that guy's up at 4:30 doing his thing. So
I love it. I love it. Well, as you know, this show runs live on Facebook, and here in Austin, Texas, we are at 10 a.m. Central always. And but this also lives on my podcast, The Second Half. And so to whoever's listening today, I would love for you just to kind of introduce yourself a little bit about who's Brian Gubernick. And I want to take this in a couple different directions because, again, the playing to win mentality shows up in my opinion, everything you do. You are I have so much respect and love for you, Brian. You're an amazing human. You're an amazing dad, husband, business owner. You have multiple businesses, not just real estate. And you have this way of just growing continually. And I love that. And would you just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll start there.
Yeah, you set me up to, it's tough when you say all that. I appreciate that. It doesn't feel that way all the time, but thank you for saying all of that.
Okay. And he's humble. How about that? And he's humble.
I don't know where to start. I'll go back to, so I'm 43 now. And I've been with Keller Williams for 15 years. February was my 15th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am in Arizona. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. We moved out here when I was 8, so I pretty much grew up out here. And I share with you, Arizona, I didn't start in real estate. I actually went to college and came out as an accountant. I don't know if you know that, Melanie. So
I did not know that. See, that's why I have you on the show, so I can learn these beautiful details.
Well, it's funny. So I was an accounting major. And I was actually just talking about this yesterday with an agent out of Orlando, a really super high producing agent out of Orlando. And her husband happens to be a CPA. We were grabbing dinner and I was thinking back to my time as an accountant, and it kind of goes with the theme of this podcast. When I look back at college, I was like, why did I go the accounting route? I know exactly why I went the accounting route. It was the most competitive major, at least in the business school. And he or she that got the best grades got the best job. That was the way it went. And so I loved accounting, not necessarily for the work, but because there was a scoreboard.
Yeah.
Where you ranked is where you landed in terms of job, obtaining jobs. And so I went that route, and I came out of college and worked my first couple of years for, it used to be called Deloitte & Touche. Now it's just called Deloitte. So I was in public accounting and I hated it.
Mm.
I hated it. And I hated it not because like I actually liked the work, but I spent my time pretty much in a cube working, just grinding. And I was a staff accountant, low ranking accountant. I was grinding and it wasn't the hard work or anything like that. It's funny, but when I look back, what was my problem? No one ever gave me any sort of behavioral or personality assessment.
Yeah.
Which is shocking because you take a massive company like a Deloitte, one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. They never once looked at my behavioral style and said, you know what, Brian, you might not be well suited for the cube life.
Yeah.
And so I was miserable and I didn't know why. I actually remember calling my mom and being like, I can't adjust to the real world. Something's wrong with me. And she's like, oh, you'll be fine. Well, years later, after I started, within Keller Williams teaching Recruit Select, which later became, career visioning, I look back at those days. I'm like, yeah, no wonder why I was miserable. I was not cut out. So I go back. The reason I start there is because the competition that was accounting drove me there. When I got into the real world and started working that job, I loved the knowledge, but the job itself didn't work for me. So in Phoenix, when you don't know what you want to do with your life, you get into real estate. That's just what we do out here.
I know. I hear there's a running joke because, that used to be my region where I started, right? I started in that same region. And it was like in Phoenix, the joke was when a police officer pulls you over, he asks for your real estate license, right?
I mean, it's true. I mean, right.
How many agents? Like 20,000 or something like that or more?
Now in Arizona?
Yeah.
4x that, 4 times that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we're, when the market's good, the realtor count, of course, skyrockets.
Sure.
I don't know where we're at exactly. I know it's over 80,000. So we have an awful lot. Now, again, part of that has to do with the fact that we in Arizona have an awful lot of part-time realtors. There's nothing negative about that. I'm just saying, like, you've got a lot of people like me. So when I went from accounting into real estate, Melanie, I went not as a real estate salesperson, hadn't gotten there yet. I was an investor. Again, when you don't know what you're doing, you go buy real estate properties in Phoenix and you start fixing them up. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And the market made me look like I knew what I was doing. And shockingly, even though I was in accounting and in the finance and numbers, I was not really, I wasn't doing what I should be doing. I wasn't well educated at all with respect to how to underwrite properties and all. I was buying properties and appreciation was taking care of it until the day, you probably know where I'm going with the story, the day it did it. When 2006 hit, which is so silly to say because all of the indicators were there in 2005 and the beginning of 2006, but I didn't know what I was looking at.
Right.
Suddenly it felt like, bam, everything changed. Well, that's certainly not the way it went, but that's the way. So I bring that point up because here we are today. Now, I'm not trying to imply we're going to have some crazy sort of shift like we had back at that time, but there are numbers, there are things that you could be analyzing right now that you're watching that should be creating a degree of fear, and you should be making your decisions based off of that as opposed to ignoring it and using that old strategy of hope, which is not a strategy at all. Like, I hope it goes the right direction. I was running the hope strategy.
Gotcha.
So I'll fast forward. I ended up, getting my butt kicked. I was winning, and then all of a sudden I was no longer winning. I was getting my butt kicked, and the story, and I won't bore everybody with it, but I short sold some properties, and I had no idea what a short sale even was. I just called my bank one day and said, I can't pay you back what I owe you. And I've got an offer. And they're like, what do you want us to do about it? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, figure it out.
Yeah.
It was a really, really low point in my life because I'm 20 at that time, 25, 26. I was riding this Phoenix wave. So I thought I was successful. I was making more money than my friends, which meant I was responsible for buying beers every Friday and Saturday. I thought it was good. And then this market hit, and it was like my first really, really major, from my perspective, failure. And it was hard. But here's what, when I look back and I'm like, okay, how did that work out for me? And why was that the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life? I wasn't super intentional about this, but it was hard for me for like 48 hours. Like, I allowed myself to be sad. And I dusted myself off sooner than most everybody in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And again, I was naive. It wasn't like I was being strategic or I had read some book that motivated me. It was just my mentality, probably upbringing, and things like that. I was very blessed and fortunate to be around, but it lasted about 48 hours for me before I said, okay, hell, I got to go figure it out. Well, in hindsight, it's kind of funny. And well, it's not funny, but I look back and I'm like, God, I thought my world was over. Like I literally was talking to a bankruptcy attorney and I'm 26.
Right.
And I look back and I'm like, dude, you had a Labrador, a condo, and like a car. That was like all you had. You had no responsibility.
Everything at the time, Brian. It was everything at the time. You did that because your perspective was that's where you were at that time, right?
That's right. And so I thought like, man, like I got to tell my parents I'm a failure. All the, and so it was super hard, but it was also the greatest thing that ever has happened to me in business, because from that, I had to battle back. I realized I missed the mark on so many things. I didn't study anything. I wasn't knowledgeable. I was just, using hope as a strategy. And I went through these short sales, and it was then that I realized, hey, some other people might need some help with this sort of thing that I just went through. It was not my intention to build a real estate business around the short sale. It was supposed to be one of the options. I had no idea, what real estate sales were even about. I had my license at the time, but it was just to save on commission. And so I had nothing else to do. And so I started helping people. I showed up at a Keller Williams office in February of 07. And randomly, because I knew nothing about the company. And I just had seen a lot of signs around town. And there was one name on the sign at the time, Zalesnik, the Zalesnik Group. And I recognized the last name because Ryan Zalesnik had gone to high school with me. And from my perspective, he had every sign in the ground. Now, nice. I didn't know, again, that wasn't a great thing at that moment because that meant we had hundreds and hundreds of listings that were sitting there. But I went in and I'm like, hey, I've got this idea around the short sale stuff. What do you think? And like a friends of friends had teed us up. And he goes, well, that's a really good idea. I've got this retail team and I've got this new home team. Why don't you start working on like this distressed property idea? And I'm like, cool, what's it pay? And he's like, what's it pay? Dude, you're in real estate sales now. It's like zero. It's 100%. I'm like, well, hell, what do I have to lose? So I'll fast forward many years. Those first handful of short sales ended up being, the first of thousands and thousands that we did across the nation. And so as you know,
wow.
Like my real estate sales career from 07 to really 12 or 13 was 100% distressed property, predominantly real estate short sales and REO and bank-owned properties. So when the market changed for the better everywhere,
yeah,
that was my shift.
That's right. Again, right? That was another shift.
Because it's comical to say, my buddy Jason Abrams loves to remind me like of how silly this is. But I had sold at that point thousands of homes and can count on one hand how many were normal sales, equity sales. I had not gone on a traditional listing appointment where someone actually had equity in their house,
right,
more than like 3 times in my life by that point. So when the market started returning, my real estate team, which at that point was now in Phoenix, Seattle, and Portland and Michigan, had to convert its model to traditional lead generation because our short sale strategy was the leads resulting from it were less and less and less every month.
Right.
And I was kind of like out of production by that point. Like I'd started working more on the business than being the guy driving and taking listings. And so, 2013 was a big shifting year for me to learn what this traditional real estate thing was all about. Cause I just hadn't done it yet.
Yeah.
Fast forward. And again, I tell that early story because that was my foundation. And a really important point that I always like to make, I like to emphasize it. From 2013 forward, I got involved in 2013 market center ownership and getting into the title space and doing more coaching and training and doing things for Keller Williams. I had the luxury, I was fortunate and blessed to do all of these really cool things, but it's really, I always like to emphasize all of that stuff. All of it came from the fact that I had built a successful real estate practice and business first. Mm-hmm. I'm very clear on the fact that Gary putting a microphone in my hand at Mega Camp in 2010, which he was talking to me about short sales, which he was kind of like looking through me because it was a very market of the moment. Like he had the REO girl and guy and the short sale guy and girl up there. But, he didn't really want to be talking about that. But that microphone in my hand, that only came because I was having success with my real estate practice. And when I say microphone, it wasn't so much like, hey, I get to be in front of a crowd. It's what brought some credibility to what it was I was doing. It made some relationships. Frankly, it spun up some money that I could then go invest and do things with. And so for those watching, those real estate agents and team owners watching, never lose sight, never forget that what you are building or that real estate business that you have, it is the platform, if you do it right, for all of these other things. And for me, none of it would exist if I didn't spend the first 6-7 years focused like blinders on real estate sales. So anyhow, so I mean, that kind of leads us, kind of up into this point. I've had my hands, as you know, in lots of different things, and some of these things were not as synergistic. And so I've learned that over the course of time, like most of what I do today is somehow, some way all related to one another. I've been as you know, I've owned, gyms and CrossFit gyms and cryotherapy businesses and all these other random things that I love, that I'm passionate about. And I spun up in my head, there was some relation to real estate, but the truth is those ended up being more distractions. While they made a couple bucks, they were distractions. So today I look at my world, this is my world, and I have different lanes, and these things all have to relate.
Okay.
And so I think about it a lot of times, I'm asking myself the question, just like many in business are, is, how can I further monetize the transaction or the real estate relationship, or how do these things play off of one another? In other words, if I own a real estate team, maybe I should look at owning the brokerage. And, if I own the brokerage, maybe I should have title. And if I'm owning the real estate team and generating deals for title and for the brokerage, maybe I should be buying some of those properties as an investor. And if I'm doing these things, maybe I should be coaching agents how to do them. And if I'm doing all of that, maybe I've got enough influence to come alongside my buddy Tim at Homeward and help grow the revenue side and the expansion of the business. So the idea is to keep things somewhat aligned and efficient.
There's so much there.
Yeah, right? I'm sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
No, it's good. No, in a good way. There's so many nuggets that I'm like, oh yes. I want to back up a little bit before we move forward. Okay. So first of all, I love that you talked about expansion and that you were in 4 different markets when you had to reshift again, right? I understand that market. That's the market I learned in. It was very real and it became a niche. And I didn't realize that 100% of your business was from distressed property short sales, right? Specifically. And then that shift. So you were doing expansion before we even talked about expansion at Keller Williams, right? And so to me, and the other thing you just talked about is, when we're looking at all of these different adventures or different businesses to own or whatever, I think it's really, really smart to think, how are they all connected? How does one connect to another? And remember when Gary did his class for outside of KW, it was like the empire building class. Yep. I think you were in that room with me at Keller Williams, and he had that build your Disney chart, right? Build your Disney. And Disney is, do you have it?
I don't know if I can reach it, but that hangs on my wall. If I ripped it off, it's like glued to the wall, but there you go.
I love that. Yes, exactly. And so the listeners that are just listening to the podcast, it's this whole ginormous map of everything. You think Disney, you think movies, you think merchandise, you think parks. It goes on and on and on, right? There's so many things that are connected, all from this creative idea, right, of Disney. So that's with your real estate business. I love that you take that same, and I love that you have that on the wall. That's so cool.
It's the only thing aside from a hunting trip with Ben Kinney. Aside from that, that's the only thing hanging on my wall. And I look at it every day. I mean, it sounds corny and it sounds cliche, but I think about like, what's my version of that? And, one thing that resonated with me when Gary talked around this build your Disney, and maybe we could even share it on Facebook, whatever, we'll figure out a way to get that chart out. One thing you'll notice that hit with me, and Gary was pointing it out, he said, if you look at this chart, there is a mouse. bouncing around from line to line. And the mouse, of course, is Mickey Mouse. And I remember Gary saying something to the effect of, well, what is Mickey representing in this chart, this mind map? And the answer is, was Walt's one thing, right? Like Mickey Mouse was the focus. As a matter of fact, Disney's mission statement at one time was keep the mouse happy. Like, would Mickey be happy with this? Would Mickey respond well to it? Would Mickey, and it sounds, again, kind of corny, but I do think oftentimes like real estate or the real estate transaction or the realtor is my version of that. Obviously, I'm not at Walt's scale. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, but we could all kind of draw out and should be thinking about having whiteboard sessions with ourselves. Just asking the question, what could it look like? You know, I even know, side note, Melanie, there's a handful of individuals, you know, I've talked with or worked with over the years that we've had this conversation around building your Disney. And I've had individuals that will literally draw out what they think their world could look like one day and hang it up on their door at their office.
Love it.
And then people walk by and they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And if you want to identify like people in your world that you might think, you think might want to go along for the ride, hang up your giant vision. And yeah, 9 out of 10 might laugh at you, but that 10th says, man, I can get behind that. I'm intrigued by that. What is this role or what is this business? Yeah. How can we talk about that? I mean, I love that idea. You know, it kind of goes back to, and we always talk around, I know you talk around Gary a lot, and so do I. I mean, call it what it is. The guy's a genius. I remember being
smartest guy in real estate.
Well, I remember being in a room where he looked across the room and he said, I'm no different than any of you guys. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. And he's like, no, I mean, there's people in here that are smarter than me. And I'm looking around the room. I'm like, yeah, probably. And he said, there's people in this room that work harder than me. Now, don't get me wrong. Gary's insanely bright and Gary works his tail off. But is there, in a room of 300, are there some people that are probably smarter? Yeah. There's some people that are probably working harder? Yeah. He goes, the only difference between you and me is that I just think way, way bigger than you. And he goes, when you guys are sitting there, you realtors, real estate team owners, you're thinking about how to be the biggest team in your city or even the biggest team in your state. I was thinking about how to build the biggest brokerage in the world. You know, like you want to be $100 million team. I want to be, you know, a multi-billion-dollar, or it's just a different mindset. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. And this whole think big, I know it's kind of played out in some respects, but I don't know. Have you ever tried it? Like anybody that says, oh, no. Have you ever like really sat and said, man, how big can I mentally get this? And then multiply it by 2 or 3.
Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much.
It's a fun game, right?
It is. It's gamifying your life. And we actually, this last week in Bold, there's a lot of new material in this session of Bold. And it was in your group, talk about what's that big thing. Let's talk about that. What are those things? And if somebody isn't laughing at you at the table, it's not big enough, right?
I love that.
And there were so many powerful conversations. Of course, mine was huge, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna have this. And it was like, totally see it, you know? And it was so fun because one of my top agents in my office and our team, for, you know, how we all have team names in Bold, right? And we're called the Millionaire Makers is what we picked as our name. And she leans over to me. She said, you guys aren't thinking big enough. She said, Melanie, you're already a millionaire maker. You're a billionaire maker. You need to change that M to a B. And I said, oh girl, I love that. When the people around you bring it back like that, right? It's like, you know, you're in the right room.
Laugh. Would an outsider laugh and say, billionaire maker? Come on, Melanie. Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
And that's great. And by the way, I gotta say it because I don't want to lose. This is really important to me. We talk about this, and we have a bunch of business owners that are hopefully listening or thinking around this. This is very much applicable to your personal world.
Amen.
It's very much applicable to the relationships you have with your significant other, or the relationships you have with your kids, or your health, or your mental state, or like seriously, what would I know it again. I'm sorry, some of you may be laughing, but I do ask myself, like, what would be the Disney? What would be the vision map for my kids? For my relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
Like, what would that look like? What would the dream, greatest relationship I could ever imagine look like with my kids? And let's cast that vision. and then build action steps to it. And I'll likely fail along the way, because if it's big enough, probably never going to make it there. But if I trip and fall and my vision's big enough, it's still the greatest relationship one could probably ever imagine. So I think about those things in a sick and twisted sort of way.
That's not at all good. That's beautiful, Brian. That is amazing. Exactly. I love that.
I just think it's really, really important to recognize that a lot of what we're discussing is very much applicable to all areas of your life.
Yeah.
Like, what would the healthiest version of you look like?
Yeah.
Like, if you're sitting there and you're on the couch every day and you cast this vision of, I want to run a marathon. Okay, you might fail in terms of that marathon, but if you suddenly were running 3 miles a day or 6 miles, like, it's just, to me, it's just so much further ahead of where you would have been, is my point.
Exactly. No, I love that. I'm really glad you brought that up. Okay. My question I ask every guest on the show is, what does playing to win look like for you, my dear?
I'm pausing because I probably have 1,000 different answers there, but I want to give you like I'm wondering how many, as I'm going through my answers, I'm like, okay, that feels kind of surface level. That feels kind of like, what's the real answer?
Yeah.
What's playing to win? I'll tell you, for me, I believe that we all have to define what winning or losing means to us. Like, in other words, I think we all need a scoreboard. And the vast majority of us in business and in life go through business and life playing the game of what I call more. Like, I just want more tomorrow than what I have today. And I think that that's a very dangerous, slippery slope type of way to play. Now I didn't always operate this way, but I, have learned over the years, I get really clear with myself what winning or losing the day or the week or the month looks like, to the point where I need to assign a scoreboard to it. And so I wake up every morning trying to be as clear as humanly possible around what a W looks like. And my expectation, Melanie, is not that I win every single day. I'm going to strive to win every single day. But my expectation is that I need to at least make the playoffs. Let me explain. So if there's 30 days in a month, and I'm very clear on what winning or losing looks like every day, going 30-0, winning 30 and losing 0 is probably not likely. I don't want to be pessimistic, but that's a really hard thing to do. I mean, hell, only the 1972 Dolphins did it in the NFL. Okay?
I knew you get a sports analogy in there somewhere.
Yeah. The Patriots almost, but only the 72 Dolphins. I don't have to win every day, but I do think I have to make the playoffs. So what do I mean when say make the playoffs? Well, let's take, since I used an NFL football analogy, in order to make the NFL playoffs, there's now 17 games, you probably got to go 10-7, 11-6, and you make the playoffs. And the reason I say make the playoffs, if you make the playoffs, no matter your record, once you're at the playoffs, you got a chance at the championship. You got a chance at the title. Same thing I've always told my real estate agents on my team. Hey, I don't need you to win every single day, but if you can go, 11-6 or 10-7, or over the course of a 20-day month working day month, if you can go 13-7, 12-8, you've got a shot at the playoffs. And if you get to the playoffs, you got a shot at the championship. And in the real estate sales world, that championship may be amount of GCI or number of units sold. Just get me to the playoffs. So go back to your original question, like, what does playing the win mean for you? I got to take a step back and say, hey, let's define it for you. I don't care what it is, but I do want you to wake up every day and know exactly what you're striving to achieve. Otherwise, you're playing that game of more, and it's not a healthy game. I want better this or more of that, and that's not good. I don't think that that's a great way to go about it, because you know how it goes. You never know when you arrive. And when you do arrive, or you think you arrive, you just want more of that. It's kind of that old, like Dan Sullivan has a book out right now called Gap versus Gain.
Oh my gosh, Brian, I love that you're going to talk about this.
Well,
I love that you're going to talk. I just read that book and shared it with ALC. I love this book. Yes, please listen everybody to this.
well, so here's the funny thing. I actually haven't read the book, and I'll tell you why.
Well, I have, so I've got you back.
No. But so I haven't read the book. I've been talking about that concept for years because I was in Dan's mastermind.
No way. See, this is why I love it. It was you.
I was in it. I was in his mastermind, and went up to Toronto every quarter. And he was talking about this concept, and I loved it because that was the world. So in summary, the shortest version of it is, and I always tell it this way, I say, I try to draw a picture. I'm not going to do that today. But if you're standing on top of a hill, if Melanie's standing on top of a mountain or a hill, and I said, Melanie, see that horizon over there? Go hike out to it. Get there. And Melanie's like, yeah, I'm a killer. I'm a winner. I'm going to get, I'm going.
Watch me.
Melanie starts on that trek. She starts hiking, and she's hiking, and it's hours and hours and hours. And she gets to the next mountaintop, and she's been hiking towards this horizon all day. What does she see when she arrives? Well, what she sees is that horizon. And she's like, I'm not even anywhere close to getting to it. Well, the reality is you're never going to get to it. But if I took Melanie and I turned her around and said, well, let's look at where we just came from. And what she would see is miles and miles of valley all the way back to that hilltop that she was last on.
Yeah.
And so this idea of gap versus gain is that if you are constantly focused on the gap between where you're at and where you're going, you're going to be a pretty unpleasant person in business and in your personal world. However, if you take a moment, and with all the high achievers watching here today, it's kind of hard, but if you take a moment to turn around and reflect on the gain, I think it's a lot healthier a process. Now, to bring that back to what I was saying, because I know we're kind of all over the place, that's where I think the win-loss scoreboard, understanding whether you win or lose the day, comes into play. Because without defining where you're headed, there's no point by which you could turn around and figure out how much you've gained. And instead, you're constantly looking at the gap, and the gap is from where I'm at today to what I don't have. Right. So I think I think that, gamifying is where I'm kind of going with this. So the original question is, Brian, like, what's playing to win mean to you? To me, it starts with definition of what winning or losing even means.
Okay.
And then it's tracking, how I'm proceeding with my objective of getting to the playoffs. So I have a shot at the championship.
Yeah.
Again, it's applicable in your relationships, in your health, in your personal world. Like I look at, I'll take my 11-year-old Avery, and I have a vision for where I want our relationship to be. And I'll walk that back to the monthly, weekly, and daily activities that I need to achieve, that I strive to achieve, so that it chips away and gets me to the playoffs, to the championship, which is the ultimate vision of that relationship. Now, when I walk it back to today, the activity may be as simple as, literally winning or losing the day with my daughter may look like, hey, did I tell Avery today that I'm proud of her? Right? Like, that's it. And that is it for the day. Like that is what I decided is the thing. Like I haven't shared that with her in a little bit. And so, and it hasn't happened yet today, but I'm defining winning or losing. Guys, I know it's crazy, but I'm defining winning or losing with my 11-year-old by, if I say to her today, honey, I am really, really proud of you. And I say it sincerely with full focus. And that's it. That's it. And if I did that, that's a W for the day. I'm 1-0.
I love that. It's this planting seeds of greatness is what you're saying. You want to plant a seed of greatness every day. And what that does is it builds her confidence, right? So, and Dad loves me. He's proud of me. I can always go to him. Right. And so I love that. And I really love that you brought up that book too. And I highly recommend any of our listeners. It's The Gap and the Gain is the book. That's one of our listeners asked. And honestly, I love how that book opens. I know you didn't read it, but it opens with that in the United States, we were set up for failure or unhappiness because in the Declaration of Independence, they wrote in there, the pursuit of happiness. And
Yeah.
you can't pursue something you already have. So it's like saying you don't have happiness. And so that's the different energy between a gap and a gain. A gap is the lack, and a gain is look what I've done. It's the Melanie climbing that mountain, turning around, and look how far I've come. Right. And there's more time to get where I need to go. But so I love your explanation of that answer of playing to win. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
And for anybody that's like, dude, you're really, are you taking the fun out of it, or the organic behavior? I'm a Jocko Willink disciple. Like, I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink and extreme ownership and the various books that they've written. But the one thing that and Gary said this, everyone said their variation of this, their version of this, the whole concept of discipline equals freedom.
Yes.
Very much resonates with me. And when I look at like discipline, like I'm defining what winning or losing looks like, and then I achieve that, I have freedom in the sense that I like health, like my mental state, or my anxiety, if you will, or my lack of knowing, or, am I failing or am I succeeding? That's the freedom I gain. Like in business, it's very easy. Like, hey, am I disciplined with my performance of my lead gen? Okay, great. I did my 2 hours. Now I have the freedom to go do these things throughout. That's very, very clear cut. But when it comes to like things like I described around relationships, it's the same concept. So I look at like this discipline versus freedom, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring structure to these things that most people live in an unstructured manner. But I don't want to be like most people.
Yeah.
Right. Like I like this discipline equals freedom concept. And for anybody that's sitting there saying, man, this is kind of weird, I would say, yeah, no, 100%. Like if you study anybody that's been successful in business or life, what are you going to find, Melanie? You're going to find that they're weird as hell. But what's the definition of weird?
Exactly.
Right? Like it's doing something outside of the norm, doing something different than the status quo. And so for me, I look at that, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, why would I want to do the status quo? So I ask everybody, and I know everyone always kind of laughs when I say this, but I'm like, what are you doing that's weird? Are you weird by definition of the word? And if the answer is not really, well, then I'm going to say, hey, man, you might have a little bit of a challenge being successful. Like weird may be the time of day you wake up. Weird may be the quantity of books you're reading. Weird may be the way you structure whether you're winning or losing with your daughter.
Yeah.
I just said weird may be casting a vision to be a billionaire maker. That's weird. That's weird. Everybody you can study, I mean, there's a weird factor to them. I mean, it's
different, right? It's different. Yeah.
I mean, show me somebody that's had success as however we define that, with their money, with their business, with their personal lives, with their health. I will show you somebody that is incredibly weird in that they're doing things different than the norm. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the success. So get weird is the main point.
Well, that's perfect in Austin, because we keep Austin weird. So we're full of very highly talented, creative people. But I know we have listeners from actually all over the world that'll be listening to this. I love that so much. Hey, why don't we talk about real quick where's your life at now? You have a lot of things. You still have your real estate team. Can you just kind of do an overview of what's like? How do you spend your time these days? What's going on?
Yeah, most of my so yeah, I do have my hand in a number of different things, but they've become relatively passive over the course of time.
Because you're pretty leveraged.
Yeah, I am. And I have some awesome people that are alongside me in a handful of different businesses. What that really looks like is for a small chunk of time every single week, I allocate to a one-to-one meeting with that business unit leader, or a 30-minute block where I'm thinking around just that business, or I'm working on something to that specific business. But my time is limited. And that a lot of that is passive. When problems come up, maybe it becomes a little less passive for the moment. For the most part, I'm laid back, or I'm out of a handful of things that still generate a couple bucks. My time is really today split between 3 buckets. Bucket number 1, I am and in no exact order. There's one that takes up far more time than the other 2. The first one I would say is investment. So I'm very much into real estate investment and wealth building. So residential real estate investment, commercial space, anything from VRBO to single family Section 8 homes in a city across the country.
Nice.
If it pencils, if it makes sense, and I feel comfortable both with my knowledge of it, as well as if it's a distance from me, whatever management I have over it, it's something I'll take a look at. And so investment, wealth building, and tax strategy, believe it or not, are kind of fall in that bucket. That is obviously what sets me up and my family up for the future, but it's also something that kind of fills the cup for me. I'm very passionate about that sort of thing.
I love
And
that.
so like right before we started this call, I was telling you how I was talking to a friend of ours about real estate investment and VRBOs and or Airbnb and cost segregation, depreciation strategies and all of, tax mitigation, things like that. So that's a passion, number one. The next bucket, I do spend a chunk of time coaching and training agents and business owners. The area I'm most focused on, I run a quarterly mastermind with my buddy, Ben Kinney. And we meet 2 days every quarter. And while we dedicate just 2 days to those meetings, as you know, Melanie, the content, the creation, what we're going to discuss, the activities, I need a couple months leading up to it to get my head around, because I'm reading and studying and applying and all of that. So
you want to bring great content to your group, right? Exactly.
100%. I mean, you got to show up. And by the way, many already know this, but for those that haven't thought around it, if you want to create more accountability in your life, go run some class, go teach.
That's right.
Because for me, if I'm going to talk about it in front of a group of 100 people on a quarterly basis, I don't like to stand up and give theory around anything. Like it's got to be something I'm doing, or I'm reading, or people I'm talking to, or it's got to be real. So what an amazing amount of accountability. Like, I know it sounds selfish, but if you look at bucket one, investment, real estate, and all of that, tax strategy, then I look at bucket two, which is me spending time building out content and hosting this mastermind. This mastermind selfishly makes me perform at an even higher level than bucket one. Otherwise, I'm a fraud.
Darling, that's all part of your Disney, isn't it?
It 100% is. And I'm not going to be fraudulent. Like I refuse. Yeah. I'm not going to stand up. I think too often in our space, one thing I used to preach around all the time, probably the accounting background, but I always struggled a little bit when somebody would get up and present an idea, but we never knew if their business was actually profitable or struggling. And that's not a knock. Please know, I'm not trying to knock anybody. I just want to know your perspective. Yeah. If this is how you're generating business, but it's not making money, doesn't mean there's not merit to what it is you're sharing.
Right.
You just haven't figured out a way to turn a net on it. Right. So maybe I have a path, maybe I know, or maybe I shouldn't look at this yet until you discover the Holy Grail. Right. And vice versa. If you're crushing it with this, I want to know that because, well, I need to do what you're doing, or I need to figure out how it's applicable to my market. Anyhow, going off on a tangent. So
real quick, before you move on from that bucket, before you go to bucket three, who's your target audience in that coaching mastermind you're doing with Ben? Is that a certain production level of agents, or is it consumer? Like, who's in there?
Yeah, great question. It's open, but it's open to anybody, but the reality is what we discuss in that room is a lot less real estate team and next deal. Okay. And there's a lot more what to do with all of those dollars your cash generating machine that is your real estate business is generating. So nice. We have a lot of real estate team owners in there. We have a lot of market center and brokerage owners in there. We have some title company owners in there. We talk a lot about business, life, wealth, tax, natural leadership. Naturally, you get into some of the real estate sales stuff because the audience, but in my mind, this is like the next step beyond. I've always looked at the real estate sales team, and if anyone disagrees with this, I get it. You're probably the outlier, though. Most real estate sales teams specifically, they're not assets in the sense that I have a marketable asset that I could sell one day. My real estate team is worth exactly 25% of every deal that I could possibly send your way. In other words, if I was ever leave my business or sell my business, it would be for a referral fee.
Sure.
And that's the way the vast 99% of teams, there's no asset value there. But the team is a cash generating machine. And it's always been my mindset that what you do with that team or your job or your brokerage, what you do with that is where the wealth is created.
Yeah.
So that's why we spend a lot of time there. Then the last bucket, which is where I spend nearly all of my time, is alongside our friend Tim Heil at Homeward.
Which
And
I love, which you partnered with him, over a year ago it's been, because
yeah,
you kind of announced it like
19
last
months.
December, right? Like,
19
yeah.
Yeah, I've been there 19 months now
Oh my
alongside
gosh.
Tim. Yeah, the first handful of months was kind of under wraps in that, like, hey, we were working on different things and all. Then I became more public around it. But
I was
yeah,
one of your first calls. I was very honored.
you were. You very
That was
much.
exciting.
And so, yeah, I've been working, Tim's got an amazing vision for Homeward. I've known Tim for a decade plus, and I think a lot of our listeners know Tim as well. I will tell you that he is every bit a visionary and CEO.
We've had him on the show. We have one of the episodes is him talking about this. Yeah.
I'll tell, I mean, I'm not saying this because I have an affinity for Tim or, he's my friend. I will tell you one thing that being at Homeward, one thing that I'm most proud of him, he has turned into, he always has been a visionary, but he's running as the CEO of Homeward, an amazing business. And so for me, it's kind of interesting, but at this stage of my career, I was looking around and saying, what haven't I really gotten into before? Where haven't I had, what don't I know?
Right.
I think I know a lot about business. That's at least what I thought. And I got over to Homeward, 19 months ago when we had 40 or 50 people to grow this venture capital backed company with Tim, and realized how much I actually don't know. Not just in terms of venture capital, but I haven't had a job. We have, I think, almost 600 people now.
That's amazing.
So I hold this chief real estate officer role over there, which really is in my wheelhouse because what am I doing? I'm coaching, I'm training, I'm influencing agents, I'm meeting with agents, I'm speaking, I'm doing these things, I'm keeping us close to the industry. That's my role, my responsibility. I'm on the revenue side. I'm responsible for revenue growth, specifically through our bigger real estate team and brokerage partnerships. And I'm learning a ton, but not just learning a ton, Melanie, in terms of like how the business works. I know how real estate works. I know how our products work. I have had to check my ego. I've had to learn how to work through people, not just like, it's not like, I know we talk around that at Keller Williams and even in my mastermind, but it's a different level when you're working in the environment in which I'm in that we've got a tremendous amount of specialists. They're geniuses in their own respective area. We always talk about hiring talent. I'm around the most talented individuals I've ever been around. And the biggest difference for me over the past 20 years, like as a business owner, you make a decision, right or wrong. I make a decision at 9 a.m. That thing's getting implemented by 1 p.m. That's just the way my world's worked. Again, that doesn't make me smart. It just says one way or another, right or wrong, it's getting done. And we'll either win or we'll suffer or we'll learn, right?
Right.
In the Homeward world, where we actually have more structure, where it's not where it's entrepreneurial, but in a much different way. If I've got an idea, there's 17 people that have a stake in it, that vet it, that challenge it, that make me realize it's not a good idea. And that's a humbling experience. That's a check your ego experience. And I couldn't be doing this. I couldn't do this 10 years ago. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
I don't think it was so much ego. I just don't think I was developed enough or maybe even confident enough in my ability. I think a lot of us have experienced maybe that imposter syndrome a little bit. I don't know if I ever had that, but there were certainly times where I'm like, am I really accomplishing anything? Is this just a lot of noise? And so I think it took a certain like level of achievement internally, like, hey, there have been some things that worked out and I have a certain confidence for me now to hear every day or learn every day how little I know. Like I truly, thought I knew a lot about business, and then you get exposed to a totally different way by which you do things. And you're like, wow, there's a lot I don't know. And so I'm definitely learning and growing every freaking day. I mean, like it's been a good experience. It's tiring, but it's been great.
It's stretching you. It's stretching you because you're in a new arena. And honestly, you know, the name of the podcast is The Second Half, right? And because you talk about playing to win, and it actually matters more in the second half of the game, how you show up, right? Because you can be behind, 30 points, and you can come back after halftime and you can still win, or you can lose. Either way, it's how you behave. And so you having the second half, and I know you're not, you're not the second half of your career perhaps, but I'm looking at
I am.
It's next level, right? It's next level. So you're in the second half of you growing who you are, and all these skills that you have are working so perfectly, and yet it's stretching you in a new arena. I'm sure that is challenging, but also super fulfilling for you.
This is very much the second half, and it may not be second half in terms of age or career,
right?
But I look at my first 10 to 15 years as the foundation. Had some success that created a couple dollars that I could go invest and do these other things, maybe created some degree of freedom or stability. But that first half was the foundation. The second half that I'm in right now is leveraging all of this that I've been able to take over the past 15 years, specifically within Keller, and apply or poke holes in. And so, no, I love that. Totally agree with it, because this is definitely, like, again, maybe the first 15 years weren't successful in terms of like material, maybe dollars or possessions or trips or experiences. Maybe not, but what did I learn, right? Like, how am I applying that stuff today? I think about it. I really do.
I love that so much. And I say, August 1st for me will be 15 years straight as a team leader, which you don't hear about many times. And this is my third location. And so the last 2 years, so when Gary asked me to transition to North and the citywide unification and walk away from, where I'd been 9.5 years at the Southwest, and I'd been OP already the North. I'll tell you what, the last 2 years, Brian, I feel the way you feel. I feel, because here I am, I'm learning something new every single day, and it's challenged me. And there's been things I've had thrown at me, alone leading in the pandemic, right? It's just, and I'm so grateful for that, because I think I'm better today because I said yes to that challenge.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I love that. Right. And there's so many things we don't know. I mean, that's what's crazy. I mean, like, it's exciting and stressful, and you can be super passionate around it, but it's going to give you something that, like, I have all that. And that's when, I mean, like, the day that goes away is probably the day I'm going to tap out. I don't think that's ever going away, though.
I don't think so either. Yeah. Do you have a couple extra minutes, because we're out of time on our end, but are you okay? Because we started a little late. I have one more question if you can.
Yeah, I could be a little late to the next thing, so I'm good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and I can edit that out for podcast. But so here's the one thing I want to come back to, because you talked about the shift, right? The shift. The first shift was, you got in, and you really found and tapped into your market and became an expert and started helping other people in short sales because you yourself were doing that. And then it shifted again, because then now you're like the master of short sales, and short sales pretty much went away pretty quickly. And I completely understand that. So now you see a new market. Like you said, there's indicators, and we don't know if it's today, tomorrow, next year, whatever. We don't know that. What advice for the people that are in real estate that are listening, or anything in our industry, any advice on what to watch for or how to handle that when all of a sudden on your listing now there's 2 offers instead of 10, and then 2 months ago there were 20, right? Any just advice on how to maneuver through the next whatever's coming?
Yeah. Well, that's a whole hour in and of itself.
It is. I know. That is not a 2-minute last minute question.
Yeah. I mean, for a 2-minute answer, I'll tell you where my head goes. Number one, it's incredibly difficult to forecast. Everybody knows that. There's people in the industry right now. As a matter of fact, 3/4 of those selling properties right now that have no clue what I'm talking about when I talk about short sales and 2006 to 2002. Like, you don't know. Exactly. And the world's not getting back to that. I'm certain of that. I do think that by, Q4 this year, Q1 of next year, and as Gary says, I mean, I think there's indicators showing us that the economy and inflation and even recession, like we're clearly going to slow down. Okay.
Sure.
And normalize. And I think that that's the key point I want to make. Like, yes, you're not going to have nine offers on your property. You may actually have 30 days on market. You may even get to 60. Like, oh my gosh. Like for those that haven't been around, I mean, we all forgot.
Yeah.
Right now, like when I got into real estate and I bought my first home, and this is where I start sounding like the old guy. I had a 6.5% rate. And that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing. Like that's still so cheap. It's just not cheap relative to 2.5.
Exactly.
And so, and by the way, when it was 6.5 was the greatest market known to man at that time in 05, 6. And so things will normalize. Here's what I know. And here's where my head goes on all of this. I'm at Homeward. Obviously I compete in a certain space. I am part of one of the companies we call a disruptor. There are some companies like ours that are absolutely committed to keeping realtors center of the transaction. Like I'm not saying that as ear candy. That is like essential to us because we're built by realtors. But then there are more companies, and this isn't like an attack on any of them. It's just a reality. Their only path to profitability is by squeezing the commission or pushing the realtor out of the transaction. I share that not to go down that path necessarily, but I believe, Melanie, that the one thing that cannot be taken from us are our relationships unless we screw it up. By screw it up, if you lack consistency, if you lack frequency, and if you lack quality of conversation, then online vendors will take them away from you. Every single client you have right now, whether you like it or not, is talking to you and quite possibly Googling that same address, or is on Zillow, or is on Redfin, or is on, whatever it may be, at the same time they're talking to you. That's just the reality. What can't be taken from you are your relationships. So no matter the direction of the market, if you maintain the relationships to the extent you should, everything's going to shake out great for you. However, and we all know this, but I'm going to emphasize it. You are not like the days of being the realtor that sits across the table and says, hey, here's my marketing plan. And hey, here's what I charge. And hey, here's my resume and why I'm better than the next guy or girl coming in after me. Those days are gone. And you truly, truly, truly have to think about what being an actual consultant means, what it means to be like, we have lawyers, attorneys, we have doctors. Like, what do we want out of our lawyers and our doctors? What we really want, Melanie, I just want to be led. Like when I talk to my attorney, which I wish was not as frequent as it may be, I don't talk to him about cost. I don't talk to him about, his past cases and how many he's won. I may have done some discovery on the front end. That's not our conversation. What do I want out of him? I just want him to give me a direction with confidence. Tell me, what it works out, how it works out if it goes well, how it doesn't work out if it doesn't go well. I just want to be led. How do fortunately, I don't go to the doctor all that much, but if I go to the doctor, I don't want to know all the intricacies of everything. I just want to know the direction I need to go. And I really believe, Melanie, that with our real estate relationships, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you're not leading, if you're not influencing, if you're not coming from providing any value, they're going to go somewhere else. And where are they going to go? They're quite possibly going to go to one of these disruptors that are looking to compress commissions or remove you from the transaction. So no matter the direction of the market, please, please, please become a true consultant to your people. They need you. They need you. And it blows me away that we're still at this point in real estate where the realtor is still thought of as the guy or girl with the lockbox key. Like the financial planner gets the respect, the attorney, the doctor, fill in the blank. They all get the respect, but we are still perceived as just the one opening the door. We got to change that. Otherwise we're going to be out. We really will.
Well, and we earn that by showing up and being the solution. And I think that we love Homeward here in Austin. I mean, we love that solution because it just fits right into everything else we're doing with Keller offers, whatever. And when you can really lean in and have those relationships and you figure out what's the problem I can solve for you today. You know, Blake Outlaw was sitting next to me in Bold because Homeward was our sponsor this week in Bold. And, you know, Cody was talking about real estate attorneys and divorce attorneys. And how do you, you know, and Blake was saying, well, actually at Homeward, we have the solution where we can actually help them both buy their next property. Do you know your options though? Do you know the disruptors you have in your pocket for you to be able to go compete in the market of today and where we're going, right?
You need a menu of service. A consultant will have a menu of services.
Right.
And your job is to not sit across the table from the individual, but sit on the same side and pull out that menu and say, okay, given your scenario, here's the 4 different paths I think we can take. And which one of these, you know, makes the most sense? Here's my honest opinion. Here's how this could look. To me, that's leading. Like, what sales? Identify points of pain, reach into your bag of tricks or your menu of services, and provide solutions to those points of pain, and then drive towards executing on those solutions. To me, that is sales plus leadership. And I think that is, no matter the market, you'll be just fine if you do that. And if you stick your head in the sand and say, it's not really turning, it's not really changing, you're going to look like a lot of those realtors during the last major market shift that just talked about how, man, I hope this thing recovers here soon. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So
be of service, right? Be of service to your people and have relationship and dig deeper and have the solution. So Brian, I wanted to thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you for moving your calendar around to be here. Do you have one last sentence that you want to close this out with?
You know what? I'll go back to something I said earlier. I really want you, here's the focusing question for the weekend or for the next week, whatever it may be. When you get in front of your whiteboard, what am I doing that's weird? And how can I double down on that? Like, what makes me different? What makes me weird? And can I double down on that? And if the answer is, I don't know, then I'm going to challenge you to figure out what you should be doing different than everybody else around you, so that I can run into you one day and you tell me about it. And I'm like, whoa, Melanie, that's different. Dare I call it kind of weird? I want to challenge you on that. So get weird, be weird, come up with something that you're doing differently and double down on it, or identifying what you're going to do different. And again, it may just be, hey, I'm going to read 10 pages every single night. Guess what? 99.9% of people in this world don't do that. That makes you different. That makes you weird. So don't overcomplicate it, but figure out what you're going to do differently, because it's the different people that I find to be the most successful. All right.
Boom. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Inspiring and weird, Laurencia said. Inspiring and weird. Thank you. And awesome. You got applause. And everybody said in the chat, great. I can't. Yay. Brian, thank you so much for your time, my dear. I appreciate and value you so much. Have an amazing weekend. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Melanie.
Bye, guys.